calling in. We've got a lot going on, a couple updates. We don't have any maps yet from the county. I will be giving Russ a call today to directly with him to make sure we can get these things.
Has joined the conference.
Oh, hi. I incorrectly said you weren't going to be coming in today. I don't know what it, oh, that's, never mind. Okay, join everyone.
I managed to make it.
I will speak with the GIS department today to make sure that, number one, we can get what we need, and number two, that they understand that we need things pretty quickly. As you all know, we're moving through this process really fast, and with all the other plans they have on their time, sometimes it's not easy for staff to read as quickly as we really need them to be. But if we'll make sure we can get what we can get. If for whatever reason we can't, there are other ways that we can get these maps done, and so we can know what we're talking about visually. I did some revisions to our draft ordinance. The draft ordinance has not yet gone before our lawyer. That's the next step. I would like to put it out to you before our lawyer sees it to make sure that you've had one more crack at it. So far, the changes I've made have been really minimal. We had a concern out there that we didn't want to say that a commercial cannabis cultivator is only existing. So it was just a matter of putting up, interjecting a few words here and there to say, commercial cannabis operator could either be existing or could be a proposed use, and to start to flesh out exactly what the means will need to be made to a CCA district. And one of the things that we settled upon during the last meeting was that in order to get one of these districts up and running, you would petition the community and have a certain dedicated support among property owners in that proposed district. Other than that, we'll send that back to you, get your comments on what we've done, on the new updates we have for that, and following that, then we'll go into legal review of it. We see this as going in front of the broader overlay group in 2 to 3 weeks. So we'll get your comments on what our revisions are. We'll incorporate, we can. It'll go to legal review. It'll go to review by staff, and then we'd like to send it back to you and out to the overlay, the overlay working group. Following that, then we would take it into the community and start showing people what we have.
Mark, can I ask you a question real quickly?
Sure.
The piece about needing to do the petition in order to get community approval, I thought I heard say in the last meeting that was for the test overlays that we're doing under the scope of this present work, but for future overlays. Is that accurate?
That's correct, yeah.
So test communities, we wouldn't be doing the petition.
Don't have to do the petition, but we've said this a couple times, and I think you already get this, but just so we all understand, what we're doing this time is we'll be going to the community, and we're basically doing two things with this. We're going to, here's what the process for creating new opt-in overlay zone areas is, and here are opt-in overlay areas that we're doing right now. And so it's going to be very critical as we work towards the board hearing, that all the people in the affected areas in our 4 opt-in areas that we're working on right now, that they understand what's going on, that buy in, and that are supportive of it. Because we're not doing the petition component for these first initial 4, we're leaving a lot open to when we go into the supervisor's hearing for people to come and say, hey, I didn't know, for the difficulty when we get to that level. But long into a short question is no, we don't. We aren't doing the petition for these first 4 communities.
Does that the plan that we need be ready for, forward in front of the board is incumbent upon us, or will that be facilitated through community meetings?
So our requirement is to go out into the community and have meetings.
Got it.
Excuse me. I had half a sneeze there that didn't want to come out. Okay. Yeah, the answer is you need both. It's part of what we're required to do, but then it's also going to be incumbent on you to get out there and make sure we're getting the word out and people know what we're doing and they believe in what we're doing, or we're doing that they can believe in. Any other or general questions?
This is Penelope. I'm concerned that this is sort of up a minimum number of farms that might want to be in the overlay. Some communities are really small and sprinkle over, so I don't understand why there would have to be a minimal number. Once the overlay is set up, it should be like a cookie cutter that you can just put on little areas all over the county as needed. That's all.
Healthy, that's exactly what we're doing. All we're saying is these in this setup, these are the 4 cookies we're making. And
fantastic.
Yeah. Anything else? Let's get into Covelo. Covelo is our biggest concern. We yet have that federal lands map that will tell us which will impact the area around Henderson Road. Was there any? We also don't yet how to respond to sensitive receptors issue for the what I would call the town area. We found out that the buffer that the city doesn't control or won't control are schools, and that buffer there's a likelihood that could be impacted by the school district. So that those buffers will be able to be dealt with. Now, the thing I don't know, or we don't know, is whether or not those buffers can be controlled by the overlay zone area, or if that's a different question. Hopefully the idea is that this opt-in overlay zone would impact the buffers, but I'm entirely certain yet. That's going to be something that when we go through legal counsel and staff, we'll get a much clearer understanding. Was there any more thought given towards Fairbanks Lane and Bigger Lane? Fairbanks Lane is really well defined, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to just touch on the bus situation and the federal lands. I was really hoping we were going to have those maps because new information has kind of come to light with the tribal land setback. It's not only impacting those in the sunset zone, but also those that are actually eligible otherwise for a permit, because the tribe had several community people go before them at the last tribal council meeting last week to seek permission, and they basically interrupted the person and said, nope, we are not issuing any permits now and have no plans to do so in the future. It's unfortunate, but a fire happened recently with somebody that was trying to get their license, but they were doing something illegal in terms of manufacturing. I don't really know the exact details of it, but a fire broke out, somebody was injured, and so that's left a really bad feeling in the tribal council's mind. And it's unfortunate that it was actually someone that was trying to get a permit too, so that adds to it. And later on, I spoke with some other people in the community, and they also, I haven't gotten to speak directly with a tribe council member, but it's a town, and people say that another big reason the tribe doesn't want to grant any permits to anybody is because they are afraid if they do, it will somehow impact their federal assistance that they receive, and they just don't want to have any liability to it. So I think it's going to take outreach, education, that stuff to get the council to understand, what, in fact, that's true or not. So that's put me in a really funny place now because, again, our entire Round Valley, because Covelo represents downtown Round Valley, and Round Valley is everything else. And this is going to impact the entire community on some level because it's a checkerboard reservation. And in the Henderson area is where we have the little residential reservation. I don't know exactly what they call that, but the sprout of that is then just parcels. Now, I'd like clarity from the county if area property is also included in tribal lands, because there's a lot of that going on, and it's just going to wipe out everybody that's in the valley floor to some extent because there's just so many parcels that would then push those people out. So I feel like my work in this overlay group is now on stall because I'm not going to grant any permission. Then anything that we put in place is going to be null and void in a sense. So
would it Fairbanks Lane?
That I don't know. Again, I need to see those maps because there's property behind Fairbanks. Some of it is actually not even been zoned. It says to be assigned, and it has actually all the property behind Fairbanks on the left side. So at least from the county map that Russ did give me, it's a checker thing over it. And so I don't really understand how the county looks at those sorts of parcels because there's no designation on it. I think we might be in the safe zone with Fairbanks because everything around that is ag land. And I don't believe that there's any tribal properties in that zone, in that spot. But everything else has had a really big potential for being knocked out because of this. So, and it's, and we're talking about people that even have applied for their actual county permit. They've been approved, and they need this clearance from tribal, and now they're not going to be able to go forward. I host a meeting every Friday at 3 o'clock with the community, so we're going to have a bunch of people that are impacted by this come and speak and hopefully, brainstorm some ideas of how we can approach the tribe and whatnot. But I just want to bring that to the table right now because I think it's really important. And also wonder, as a county and as we work together as community members, I know that Laytonville also is going to have to tackle some tribal issues as well. And, maybe if their tribe grants permission, then maybe we could have somebody speak to our tribe. And I feel like if we can get more tribes on board granting that permission and showing the path forward, it's going to help strengthen the confidence of other existing tribes from wanting to enter that, because they have a very valid point. I mean, they don't want to grant permission to a cultivator and then have somebody do something totally illegal and cause a fire, especially in downtown or whatever, and then they feel that they're responsible for that as the community because they've said yes to that cultivation occurring. So, it's a sticky situation, and I feel for all parties involved, and I don't know what the answer is. I hope that something can happen because I wanted to cry last week when I found out about this happening in our community. I just was told differently before. So how that relates to my work today and for next week, I feel like I'm on hold unless you guys feel like I should still pursue this overlay regardless of any of these receptor sites, because maybe in the future the tribe would change their mind. And so it would be good to have overlay already set in place. I don't know. So I'm seeking kind of guidance.
Fairbanks Lane area is not too small. It's very easy to define. There's a similar parcels. The only concern with is that it starts to look like spot zoning. That's nice and too small. But if it's ag and there's landed property owners, it's number one that overlay area could get larger, or it could be the right size. Maybe it's not too small, but we outlined last week. I think if we are forced out of the downtown area due to the sensitive receptors, and there's a forthcoming for the tribal issue, we might be able to go ahead with Covelo and opt-in overlay zone areas, just that Fairbanks Lane area.
And my other thought too is with Fairbanks, most of the problem with them is that they're zoned RR5, but again they have less than that acreage amount, which RR5 could effectively go on beyond the sunset if you had 5 acres or more. So I don't know if this would actually be a better candidate to apply the exceptions situation to them, and maybe it would be less costly to the county. And then if that's the case, then this money could then be spent towards focusing on another community. And I really want to see as many cultivators in the county participate in the program. Of course, I'm an advocate for my town, but I also care about the bigger picture as well. So if we just have too many obstacles standing in our way because of all of just the way the zoning is here, I don't really know what to do about that. So,
well, let's get the map for the tribal lands. Let's understand if the airship property working as tribal lands. I don't know the answer to that. And let's get some answers on sensitive receptors, and then we'll decide from there. And it does seem like the exceptions could cover Fairbanks, but we have basically 3 real big questions for Covelo still.
I was wondering if there's instead of that the tribe has to get permission, is there the tribe could find a waiver of no responsibility or some way? I don't know. I'm not a legal person, so I just wonder there's another way of framing it so it's not that they're giving permission, which by giving permission they're like they're okay. But if there's a way, there's some kind of waiver so that they don't have liability. It's not their problem. It's on another.
They don't take ownership
they
the
don't.
activity.
Because you're asking permission. In fact, that is actually kind of a problem with possible beds and stuff. Is there's all kinds of different people in the community. Everyone has different issues and different things they like and don't like. And personally, I like clear cutting. So if someone asked me, if a forestry company said to me, hey, will you sign off this logging plan next to your property, I'm going to say no. It might be the best thing for that forest. Who knows? I'm not a logger or forest manager. So perhaps is there any other way of framing it? So there's different all over the county. Maybe it's not just tribal land, but it could be, a church or something or whatever. Mm-hmm. So just 10 cents.
Yeah, unfortunately, it sounds like we have 2 hurdles with the tribes that we didn't have, one of which we have before. So they may actually care and they don't want it close to them. An outreach issue of saying, well, one bad actor doesn't do the whole group, but have this concern of federal funding allowing this to occur. And so what you're saying is there a way we could say, well, you're not allowing it to occur, you're just saying you don't care if it occurs.
Not responsibility is not on their land, that kind of thing. We're talking about boundaries, right? 600 feet, right?
Yeah, we're talking about a buffer.
Yeah. The other thing too is that. Oh, go ahead.
There's a way to have a waiver on the footage away from the tribe, maybe they could sign off on. Okay, we don't mind as long as it's not 100 feet from them. These 3 numbers that were come up with by the county. So,
anything else to discuss on Covelo?
Not much. I was just also going to say with the water board's regulations, I think part of it is I think the reason they put this in there was really close tribal land could in fact be drawing water from the tribe, and that's why you need to seek permission. So my other thought was, what if the tribe was approached by a landowner that had hydrology reports that could prove water wasn't coming from the tribe? Then they're really independent, and the water under your feet should be the water that you are allowed to use. So there's that, and then also this water board changed their regulations effectively only a few months ago and set in these new rules. So people that applied under the existing water board regulation may have an opportunity to go forward under being grandfathered under the other setbacks. So I need to explore that a little bit more, but that might help a few people.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that's all I got for Willow.
Inland Coastal Overlay Zone.
Alrighty. So I had some really encouraging word with my outreach. I reached out to the retailers on the coast, working with 3 retailers, cannabis retailers, and they're helping me identify folks, and we think we have a neighborhood, and it's pretty promising because these are operators that have been existing and working with the retailers already, so there's a good viability established there. They're predominantly indoor cultivators, which simplifies environmental concerns, nuisance concerns for the neighborhood because things are contained and setbacks are only 6 feet, I believe, from neighboring parcels. Looking at predominantly RR2 and RR5 zoning. And in the process right now is we have a meeting set up on Tuesday to meet with the farmers and talk about the overlay process and really get a sense of the viability. So my plan is to update the group here via email because I understand, we're under contracted timelines. And so as soon as I have that meeting and get the go-ahead from the community, I'm ready to move forward with that and do the work of identifying, the boundaries of the area and everything else to catch up. So that's kind of an update there. So I'm very encouraged by this. And
what's the area called, Janine?
Well, honestly, I really kind of want to move forward with the meeting first and just make sure. It's a sensitive situation that we've got going on because if people are, they're sort of debating about whether or not they want to move forward with permitting based on the viability of it. And so given that these folks are kind of in that toggle, I don't want to really move forward and identify them until we have the meeting and they've agreed to kind of move forward as a community. Does that make sense?
Okay, so you'll update us during the week, and then by next week we'll be able to start doing boundaries. But if everything goes according to the plan,
it looks pretty good. So yeah, that's okay. I think how things will roll.
Okay. Boundaries next week.
Definitely seems like it's a neighborhood type of situation.
Okay, smaller area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think is South Leggett up next? I believe. Let me check. South Leggett is not next. Katie is up next. Okay, Casey.
So the one thing that is sort of a point of overall order or whatever. I'm actually having a little bit of difficulty with my process because the person who has been leading the zoning overlay subcommittee in Laytonville was not selected for this group. And I think this is actually a fairly grave error, and I need to push pretty forcefully for you guys and Michael Baker to suggest to the county that Valerie Edwards should be added back into this group because I'm having a hard time fulfilling the interface because I don't live in the neighborhood and she does. And so I want to suggest that.
Okay, we'll go back to the county. We'll request it The last time we did so, we in certain terms now that the rosters are what they are, but we'll go back again and we'll iterate your concerns.
And if you would just please make clear, that this is a situation in which the person who has the most intimate knowledge of the situation is not being included in the process. And I'll reach out to Sarah and some of the staff and let them know as well my position. But it's definitely hampering my ability to do the appropriate interface. And so, especially given the fact that somebody's a lot of background noise. Given that that we need to move forward with this thing very quickly. I have not been able to. I have not had the time to follow up and make contact with the Caddo tribe yet, and so I'm. We're all volunteers in this process, and it's very difficult to keep all these things together, and so that's kind of where I'm at today, unfortunately.
Okay. Do you know? Is the tribe there getting the same concerns that the tribe, the Caddo tribe, that's affect Laytonville, and then Megan? What's the tribe in Covelo?
The tribe Covelo is like a lot of different. I don't know. It's Pomo. It's Wailaki. It's like a diversified amount.
And
it's not just one tribe.
Are they at all in concert? Do they have a joining council or anything, or is it individual tribes?
No, I think it's individual tribes, but they're all represented as one entity, I believe.
Okay, all right. So there's a council that is guiding them or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Casey, you said, what was the tribal name again? Laytonville? CAATO. Okay, so we don't know yet if they have the same concerns that are being exhibited in Covelo. We're saying we have two concerns. We have concern of the use overall, and number one. Number two, we're concerned about our federal monies. Okay, Casey, any new insight on the folks up in the northwest corner of the area, if support there or not yet?
Is that we should just keep it restricted to the 1 acre, the R1 parcels. When you get up into the 10 acre, it seems like looking at the map that there's a pretty clear break, and it jumps into much larger parcels. And so we should include all parcels that are smaller than 5 acres, because they're the ones that are in the sunset anyway, and figure that parcels above 5 acres are eligible for permits should the individual landowners choose to do so.
That split happened at Fitch Road, would you?
I thought it was Bow, right around Bow.
Yeah, we went all the way up to. Okay.
Is Fitch on the eastern or the western boundary?
It's in the middle of the block we drew last week.
Okay.
And I do see that there's. Okay, I see there's smaller. Our boundaries are at Worthless Road and Mill Creek Road, and it's not going to be a square, but it'll be like more items anymore, but it'll angle west corner. The 7th, actually.
This is Anira, and I would like to talk a minute about the Laytonville tribe. I would be happy to initiate the outreach program. I've talked to some of them very, very loosely about whether or not they would be willing to discuss with me this topic, and have been given sort of a green light to talk to them. I do support Penelope with all of the records and the effort she's put forward. I agree with Casey. She has a tremendous amount of information and understanding and knowledge about the situation in Laytonville. I don't know and can't speak to what the tribe thinks or feels about this situation, but again, I would be willing to start that process. Actually, I'd be eager to. I'm already starting a process with a couple, or involved in a process regarding the health issues on the tribe. And so, like, I've gotten in with respect to discussing the setbacks and their relationship to it and how they'd be interested in dealing with that situation.
Wonderful.
So, awesome. I will forward you the email from Valerie with, I think it has a contact number for somebody from the tribe. Thanks.
That's wonderful. Yeah, no, for me, it's very easy. I do sweat lodges and prayer circles, and so I feel very comfortable in that role, and I guarantee what the outcome will be, but I am going to guarantee my best effort to try to secure the best understanding and relationship and mutual knowledge of the situation so that they have their toolbox make the best decision for them and hopefully the community.
Sarah, do you know, does the Gato tribe, do they interface at all with the tribe that are present in Covelo?
I did. There is a relationship when there's circles, tribes from all over get together to do the powwows and other spiritual gatherings. I actually was thinking about this, listening to what Mo had to say, and there's I'm looking at maps right now because I am on my computer, and I am finding some. There are large areas in Mendocino County. There are a lot of tribes, and like I have people I know in Redwood Valley that are interested in overlay that are close to Elmo. I'm wondering if it wouldn't make sense to not only approach Laytonville, but once we come up with the proper etiquette and approach Mendocino tribes as a whole community with topic at some point, so that we're not having to recreate the steps for everyone. We're doing an overlay tribal approach, as it were.
On surface, I think that's a fantastic idea because it also ensures that all tribes get the same information and they're all being addressed as equals.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works in our timeline, and I don't know how that interfaces with what we specifically, Michael Baker, have been tasked to do. So I can't say, yes, let's do it right away. But it sounds like a terrific idea. I think it makes a lot of sense. I just need to make sure it's within our kind of scope of services.
Right. I did it as a sub-project where it was just something I was sharing my information as I gathered it with you. It wouldn't be incumbent on you to in any way mediate it or be responsible for the positive or negative outcomes.
Correct. You could speak to those groups the same as you would speak to someone when you're in your neighborhood about what we're doing, in the capacity that you're a subgroup member and a member of the overlay working group.
Right. More a county member than as a member of this in specific detail.
Yeah. I don't see any issues with that. I do think there's a possibility, and I don't know how many caveats I can throw in there, but I'm going to throw them, or protective clauses I throw in there. But I think it's a possibility this is also a worthwhile public outreach component to this whole thing, because it does seem like the tribes are, in fact, at least 2 of our opt-in overlays, and potentially 3 of them depend where Janine lands on the inland coastal area. So yeah, it seems like good work to do.
I'm going to go ahead and spearhead that then. If everyone in the committee agrees, if the whole group is okay with that, I'm happy to take on that responsibility. The other thing is that I've continued to speak with people in Laytonville, and I'm really finding in my community that there's a lot of support for the overlay, just concern about the cost-benefit analysis. A lot of people are pretty happy in the area that we've defined to jump on board, but they're a little intimidated by the Water Board and Fish and Game process.
Okay. Yeah, we aren't going to affect Water Board or Fish and Game processes. You have to go through those permits now. But one of the things that we've discussed, and that has not yet been resolved, is the possibility that the by right activity in these overlay zones, meaning you don't need a permit, you can just do your thing. But thing, but you still have to adhere to state law. So if the water board says, you know, you need to come in and register as a tier 2, you know, as a tier 2 cultivator, you still have to do that. If you're taking water off, if you're surface water off of a stream on your property, you still got to go to Fish and Wildlife. So those requirements are there regardless of what we do.
Mark, if I may, this is Janine. I think, you know, what we're really talking about is the viability for, you know, operators to come into permitting. I mean, relays will facilitate that, but it's still an enormous decision that everyone needs to make, you know, around whether or not generally it's a viable option for them. And I think, you know, I've spoken with a number of folks here that are in this opt-in group, and, you know, just a little bit of concern about what the expectations are regarding, you know, from the Board of Supervisors and county regarding, you know, what essentially the deliverables will be if we enact these overlay zones in terms of how many people will actually, at the end of the day, sign up for permitting. And I think, you know, enacting an overlay zone and getting the initial folks that want to participate may be a very a good avenger, and more folks may come forward once they see that this is in place. But, you know, it's just a consideration. I want to make sure that, you know, we're operating within the expectations of the board, and that we're, you know, considering how effective this will be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So what, you know, Jenny, what we're talking about is we're talking about these areas where there's are reduced or easier to cultivate or run your business in these very specific areas. And you know, that's been our task. You know, to define areas and then say in what ways are the requirements reduced. And just like I said to Nira, is the thing you can't do is control whatever the state says you have to do. And make the permit process easier, we can possibly even say you don't need to go through the permit process to do X, Y, and Z in these particular areas through the county. That will not alleviate you having to or whoever to deal with state law, to do things for Fish and Wildlife, to do for the water board, to do things for the DWR. You still have to, you know, their requirements.
Great.
Any questions? Any comments on all that? Okay, you are up next.
Harvey, I've been talking to more neighbours, and actually it's quite interesting what Jeannie was saying was kind of what I was getting from a lot of the South folks. There's a lot of people interested, but they're a bit scared because so many things have changed so many times throughout this process, as we all know. But it's quite heartening to hear that you're talking about some of the rules a little more relaxed in these overlaid areas. That might be something that might help encourage people to jump on board. A lot of people want to jump on board. They want to be part of, you know, potentially a whole new type of tourism in the area, which I think, personally, I believe is going to be huge. Bigger than most people live here quite understand. California is a very attractive place. Mendocino is way nicer than Humboldt, as far as I'm concerned. So I think that we're going to catch a lot more people in the Mendocino area. People realize. So Lake area is quite interesting because it's so close to the freeway. So it's kind of potentially could be quite attractive little spot, and close to the big redwoods too. But I think a lot of people are a little afraid of maybe uncovering more process to actually get legal. But it's saying that basically that when the overlay comes, that we're going to it'll be wildlife, same water board stuff that we'd have to do anyway for permitting, then it's not adding anything. So that's really good to hear, because I'm scared that's going to be another bunch of layers of really complicated stuff. But I am getting a lot of interest. It's just people are a bit nervous to like put themselves out there. But I definitely can define neighborhoods in the whole different neighborhoods throughout South Leggett that are very interested. And we've had a community meeting, but it's really cold because the hall we have doesn't have any heating. So no one interested this past Sunday. But I'm going to work on it and try to bring people together.
So no additional insights on this little area that is right next to the freeway between South Leggett and the freeway or the highway. We're still exclude those, but there's possibility still that they would be included.
Yeah, there's one huge property owner, and she has interest, and she mostly rents, and she doesn't want to make it any easier for her tenants to do it. So okay. That's what she said to me. She doesn't want to do that. There are some people in Cummings, which is further, a few miles down the road, that want to get in, but they can get in on an exception or something, hopefully.
Well, and you all are talking to folks in the community. This isn't, like I mentioned a couple times, this isn't one shot only. The first four, and
that's what
the other areas that identify themselves as have this tradition in their communities, they should follow suit as you're going.
One thing that Jeannie was saying, I'd just like to say again, is that there are a lot of people interested. I am concerned that not as people that are interested will necessarily start right away, because they're kind of scared and they want to see what happens. And I think a few people will sign up, and then if they see, oh, that's okay, we'll get a lot more sign-ups later in the, as this process gets through. And I hope that the county is not going to be seeing a waste of time, but I think if there's a few people there sign up, and slowly over time it will become quite a good good option to get more people out of the black market and into the legal market, and then protect the environment, etc., etc. So that's my thing.
All right. One thing I'll interject here too is when you all are talking in the community, and this is somewhat of a difficult thing to do, but we need to always make sure when we're talking to people, we know the difference with that person you're talking to knows the difference between a county requirement and a state requirement. What we here are county requirements. It's the only thing that we have any flexibility on. Stuff that goes into the state requirement purview, to let the property owner is or operator is, you're still going to have to do the things that the state is requiring you to do. And frankly, to do those, whether we do these in areas or not. And what we're on here is impacting local requirements and making it easier for people in specific areas to their cannabis operation. Okay, one thing we didn't get to last week that we might get to this time, and the only reason we're going to do this is because it's going to help, and like what Penelope said earlier in the call about we're creating the cut here. There are 3 keys that we've already, we have a information of where they might be. There might be changes to that, and we have our 4th cookie, an inlet overlay that's going to be created this week. So, to create that tool to create additional vapes or cookies in the future, are there commonalities between these 4 areas really that we'd use to export in other areas? So, of course, one commonality between the 3 areas that exist now and probably will exist for the inland coastal area is there's a history of cannabis cultivation in that area. It's part of that kind of, it defines historic, or it defines that area. And is that a true statement that those three areas in Covelo and South Leggett and Lingle, there's a history of cannabis in those areas?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And are generally, and what I also, what's interesting to me, it seems like so far for all three of the areas that we've worked on, when I say Covelo, I'm really only talking about Fairbairn because we're a little bit on the rest of it. It feels like parcels that we've identified in those three areas are would they're less than 10 acres, less than 5 acres?
5, sometimes 1.5, 1 acre. Sometimes 5. There's a lot of 1 acres around that lake.
So really small parcels
Yep.
in these areas. Common physical attributes for those three areas that we can think of?
Oh, that surrounding neighbors are also cultivating?
Yeah.
That may meet the setbacks and may meet the standards?
Okay, well, so I hear two different things. Are we talking, and we just spoke about this at exceptions, are we talking about areas where utilization occurring around the areas that we've identified, but because these areas are smaller parcels, they aren't able to do what their neighbors are doing? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perhaps in South Leggett where it's all zoned RC, which makes it visible for anybody.
And that's the next question, Penelope. So we're really talking about the RC zones.
Yep.
Is there zones C in all areas? I'm assuming we're talking about residential zones, right?
Well,
Yes.
there are residential community. They're all about half an acre to a couple of acres each parcel. But then if you go back into the forest a little bit, they become bigger tract land, but not very many, and they can apply for a license, because they're in a different zoning. Most live in the small E zoning, so that's where most of the housing is. There's not a lot in the other parcels. It's tiny, and it becomes BLM land and on the other side of the freeway, it's Mendocino Redwood. So most of the actual housing and small parcels are all in the RC zoning in South Leggett. That's pretty much nothing else, really. The rest is, there are big tracts and a few big parcels, but they could apply under the regular rules they want. So, yeah.
Commonalities between the three that we've established so far that anyone can think of. It have to be anything it can be anything you can think of.
Community members. I know my auntie lives around the lake in the Laytonville area they're talking about, and my experience in that area is that people have those parcels have been there for a really long time, as so have the South Leggett decades. There doesn't seem to be, because they're small parcels, there's so many newcomers to getting into the industry. It's mostly smaller, a lot of seniors. That's all I know. So
basically we have long-term ownership in all of these areas.
It seems like it.
Okay.
I would also say a long list of working class. Most of the people in these small areas, because of their relationship to town, hold down jobs. So they're not looking at this as a main source of income, but rather a supplemental income that will help them with their retirement or whatever it is for their lives. So
these are big.
And lots of different families. So it's really not a commercial zone issue where people are wanting to generate millions of dollars and be gangsters. They're small families. It's a way to afford them nice clothes for their children, organic food, just a simple fact of living in a community like Mendocino, where oftentimes you're paid less because it's not a wealthy like some of the counties you find in LA or other areas. So everyone is used to having that as just the additional comfort zone, not a source of primary income.
So what? So Nira, that's fascinating. I want to ask the group: do we perceive there to be a limit to how large operations be in these overlay zones? So we don't think in our upland overlay zones we aren't talking about creating acres and acres of land, or we aren't talking about processing tons of cannabis.
So to answer your question, the county has a limit of 10,000 square feet, which is a quarter acre maximum for outdoor cultivation, and the smallest amount is 500 square feet for indoor cottage operators. And I just really want to speak to Anira's point. This is a commercial cannabis permitting process. So these are businesses that we are looking to fold into a viable permitting process. And I just really want to emphasize, that the cost of compliance for coming into permitting and state licensing is enormous. There's a lot of considerations with regard to land use compliance, and a whole array of costs. And so I just really, again, want to speak to the viability of this, because this is no longer the situation that we were in last year or the year before, where folks are able to supplement their income because it's a permitted licensed business with all the associated expenses. So I really think this is something we need to keep in mind as we're doing our outreach and considering the viabilities of the communities that we're folding in through the overlay. I mean, the community that I'm speaking to, these are already business people that have already been, part of a supply chain, a local supply chain, and working with retailers here. And so that's something personally that I feel very responsible to when doing my outreach and assessing the viability of communities that we're, encouraging to move forward with this process. I'm not suggesting that small cottage operators in residential communities can't, pool their resources and create a viable situation for entering into business, but this is business. This is about permitted commercial operations. This is not about, personal cultivation that has a different allocation.
I would like to that the cottage industry folks were actually some of the people that built this thing and created the wonderful genetics that a lot of these big industries are actually making a lot of money off. And a lot of the small cultivators that are cottage are seniors that were at the forefront of the industry. And when the county and the state votes were passed, it was promised that the farmer would be looked after. It may not be hugely viable, but it was part of a promise to get support from the farmers that the cottage industry farm would be protected. Part of the overlay is actually, part of the areas is actually allowing a lot of senior growers. There's a lot of senior growers who were part of the original part of this industry, create some of the best genetics, award-winning genetics. And so it may not be as viable as big business, but still some of these farmer pups do very nice. They could do with a little extra help, brisk small business, farmers market level, which has a place. So but I just want to make sure that we protect the small cottage industry farmers. There is a place for them.
Mm-hmm. And what Penelope said, and Janine, this is a business. I'm not saying that if isn't a business. What I'm saying is that it's not a mega business. These are the smallest of the farms. These are people who are willing to come together and work hard. They have an established history of working hard, and they have an established relationship with their farm. I think that that is valuable. Some people, even if it's only $15,000 a year that they're making on it, like to go through the process of compliance. They do that right. And I respect that tremendously. I think there's an honorable work involved in that and a huge contribution to our community and our jobs and our way of life that deserves recognition. It's not mean to imply that they are not businesses, just that they are not cannabis exclusive businesses with a for-profit, for-me-only agenda.
Yeah, they produce medicine. A lot of people produce medicine and family for the last 30 years. We need to remember that cannabis is a medicine, and it can be used for recreation too. So I know seniors, but it kind of upsets me. They're getting pushed out, and the county promised to reduce the cost of actually applying and everything. And I'm hoping that maybe this process it can be a bit softer on the small cottage farmers.
This is Monique, and I want to say that I do think that probably a commonality in all the different option or areas is that they are going to be smaller cultivators, typically 25 plant grows or 2,500 square feet. And because of the acreage, I don't really see that we're going to be able to get the board to allow them to go to the full 10,000 square feet. I don't know that that's going to be possible, but I want to also piggyback what Janine is saying, and it's just that it's expensive to get into this process, whether you're a small cultivator or a large one. And there are, thankfully, a few discounts given. If you go for just the smallest cottage license in Mendocino County, they cut the application and annual license fee pretty much in half. Other than that, it's expensive. So people have to realize that it's a new era if you want to come forward, and if you are only going to make a little bit of money, but you had to put out, triple that just to get into the program, that might sink a lot of people. So I think we're just speaking to the fact that when I come into this process in the overlay zones, really have to take into consideration how serious they want to be about it, because there's going to be a lot of initial investment that has to be made just to meet all of the legal requirements that are now in place. And I do know that the people on Fairbanks that have come forward are ones that really want to make this business work, even if it's on a small scale, and are willing to put in that investment money to do so. But I can't speak for every single cultivator that might be eligible for the overlay, because they might not have that capital or the umph to really take it all the way, because we have a lot of new competitors that we didn't have before. So I want to add to the discussion. But I support small cultivators. I myself am one, and I'm going to try to ride this wave out as long as I can, so I'm not giving up.
So you said 2,500 square feet.
Yeah. Minimum requirement. That's the 2,500 square feet is the smallest license type allowed in Mendocino County, and
does that meet the Does that meet the needs of? Are people finding that they would space? They would need more cultivation area.
But it depends on what kind of cultivator you are. It's like if you want to tap, I think the only way to survive as a small cultivator, speaking as one myself, is that we are going to have to mark ourselves with the boutique, specialty that's growing, an acre is not going to have that ability to put that attention to the plant in the same way. It's more of a monocrop style. So that's the difference, I believe. We could probably apply for the administrative plant on my parcel type and bigger, but I don't want to do that. I really strongly believe in being a small cultivator. I don't want to sell out to anything beyond that. No disrespect for people that have bigger desires and want to make lots of money at this. That's not my vision for me personally. And I do think that there a place for everybody. Like, even if I'm capturing 1% of the marketplace on the state level, then that's great for me. But again, it's personal. It's some people wanting to be a millionaire. Some people really want that. They have really high dreams. They have big desires to be the best, get their name fully out there, and others just want to sell their product to an extraction company and just get a small check and keep living their farm lifestyle. Not everybody wants a fancy car and a fancy house. So I think that question is kind of subjective to individual needs, but I think that there is a marketplace for everybody. It's just how much are you passionate about going for it? How dedicated are you? Because I also see the flip side. If we just keep thinking we're going to grow more, like that just continues to drive the price down. And I wish that we as a farming collective across the state could see that. We have no problem producing cannabis, but we're going to have a big problem selling it to consumers if we're overproducing. So I really believe environmentally we should be looking at scaling back. But, the train's already left the station. So, try to change the mindset of people that way is going to be difficult, and I'm not going to even try to do that. So, but I do think that people can make a living, but they have to have certain things set up, like maybe your land is already paid for, or you have certain infrastructure that's already in place so that you don't have all that extra overhead. I think somebody that is just coming into the program, going to only grow 25 plants, they have, a huge land payment. They're just, getting very, at the very beginning stage. I don't know. I don't feel hopeful that person would be able to survive and make a profit because of just the cost, But people that have been doing this for a really long time, they've set themselves up to some degree. Maybe they can go forward. So, again, I could be totally wrong. That's just my personal opinion.
Thank you, Monique.
Thank you, everyone. We're up at the end of our meeting. I have some work that I need to do. The first is we're going to be speaking to the county GIS team to make sure that we can get what we need as quickly as we need it. If it looks like we can't, then we'll talk about other options there. Just to the draft framework that you saw last week will be coming to you shortly. And then following, when you get that, nice to get your input on it, maybe at next week's meeting. It'll also be going through legal review as well. And then we'll look from GIS to get a two tribal land location, federal land location, and then a nice defined boundary for at point at Laytonville and South Leggett, and then at the very least Fairbanks Lane in Covelo. And all of you are looking for Janine's the inland coastal area is going to be, and it sounds like Anira is going to start working with to see if we can give them a direct message or something that they can all receive at the same time to understand what we're trying to do here. All right, and the time for next week's meeting work for everyone, 10:30 to 11:30 again?
Sure.
And fine. If there's a possibility that we will have another visual meeting like we did last time, just because we'll be doing the definition of the inland coastal area. Everyone can view that during the week, or if it comes out during the week. But we'll make that determination on when we get into the meeting next week. One thing we spoke about this at the beginning of the meeting, and I'll mention it again. We're hoping to get these draft ordinances over to the overlay working group, the broad overlay working group, in about a couple of weeks. So once you have a chance to review the changes I made based on your input on the draft ordinance, and once we have legal and staff review, then we'll want to get the draft framework for the ordinance over to the overlay group for them to take a look at it. And right after that, we'll be in the community. So Paul and I will be on site there something like 3 weeks from now. So or 3 to 4 weeks, so we can start doing some outreach. All right. And if there's yeah, there's no other comments or questions. That'll be it for the meeting.
Very much, everyone.
So this is Megan, and I would just like to offer, if Valerie can get back in the group, I'm willing to give my spot to her.
Okay.
This is, like
great.
I said, this is not really my issue. I mean, I'm happy to keep participating, even though I don't have that much to control.
Okay.
But if the county will let her back on the committee, then I'm willing to give her my spot.
Thank you, Megan. And then also that is also homework for us, that we need to go back to the county and see and tell them your concerns about having Valerie on the you know, in case of your concerns and everyone else's.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice weekend.
You too. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Megan
Bye-bye.
has left the conference.